very good to see some good old friends. So Felix, so first of all, those who don't know, the company participated in XCulture last semester, but it was a very, very different world. So it was before COVID. The company was running, if I remember correctly, it was something like 50 or 60 events a year, outdoor events and indoor events. And all of a sudden now the whole industry has completely changed. So I'm personally very interested to hear how Get Out events, and I believe now the name is just simply Get Out, right? How it's coping with the challenges, and as well as, in general, more about the company. And so Gordon Perchhold here is our professor from Singapore, who first put us in touch with the company, but also is heavily involved in the XCulture activities, both on the administrative side, on the strategy side. Plus, those of you who did not attend the previous webinar, I would like to highlight that Professor Perchhold recorded a series of videos called the Matrix Business Series, or XCulture Matrix Business Series. Right. So, but what's important about those videos is that it kind of looks at the first glance as a series of video lectures, but they're not your usual university lectures. So Professor Perchhold has spent a good part of his life working as a global partner at Deloitte, which is one of the global big three consulting companies. And so basically he was most of his life in the industry. So he was practicing business, not teaching business. Only now, after many decades of experience, he went to the academic side and is teaching business. And so from his experience, he found that there is a big gap between what we are teaching in academia and the real world. And so he recorded a series of videos that sort of highlight and bridge that gap, but also many of them are specifically recorded for topics that are relevant to XCulture. For example, how do you write a good executive summary, or how do you present your results? And so those videos are all available to you for free. If you go to the resource page, you see there the section that we call optional training resources. They're quite extensive, and we were kind of contemplating to make them mandatory or not, and eventually went with optional. But I truly hope that you will take a look at them, because it's a very useful set of videos and training materials. And then obviously the guest today is Felix Sim, the founder, the CEO, the manager of Get Out. The old name was Get Out Events, now just Get Out. And so I'm gonna pass the torch to Professor Perchhold, who will manage this meeting.
Great, well, it's fantastic to have Felix back. It doesn't seem that long ago. Boy, the world changes.
No. Yeah.
So just so the students understand, Felix was, he was the most popular client the last term. He was actually going to help out with the Global Symposium here in Singapore, which is supposed to be in Singapore, but because of COVID, it never happened. I don't think any physical events are happening for a while. So can you imagine your business? If you're running it, you've spent all your effort and capital and developing a whole new business, and I'd say Felix is one of the best in the industry. All of a sudden, you can't sell the product anymore. But Felix is one that looks at adversity as an opportunity. So he's reassessed the entire business model. That's what's going to be an interesting aspect of this challenge for the students. It's you have someone that's just going, I wouldn't say you're 90 degrees, you're staying within the industry sector, but you're repositioning your role within that sector. So I'm going to ask Felix, tell a bit about you and Stacy. You said in your challenge document you had 2 sons. What about the daughter?
To be fair, the document was written. Yeah, I didn't update the description. That's exactly right, Gordon. Yeah, cool. Thanks for again. Thanks to Vas and Gordon for bringing us back again to the XCulture. We had an amazing experience last semester, which is why when I put in our challenge document this time that when we received the invitation to come back again, we were scared and at the same time excited because we know the amount of value that we can get by just participating as a client in in this program, and for sure this is the time where we definitely need a lot more sort of brains on deck. And so for those of you who's not familiar with our team, I'm Felix, obviously, and I run the business with my wife Stacy, and we like to call ourselves a couplepreneur, but we all know that she's the real boss, as we know. So I think what's interesting about this challenge is, as Gordon has mentioned, we've been in the events business for 9 years now, just over 9 years now, and since 2012, after returning from Dubai, having a few years stint in the investment and finance industry, I started the events business in 2012, and since then we've run over 2,000 events. These are team building, family days, gala dinners, and these are live events, right? Because they're before COVID, and out of which we've actually sent over 10,000 proposals over the last 9 years. I've just looked at our HubSpot CRM, and it's crazy the amount of pitches and the amount of events that we did was a lot. So I'm actually hearing some echo from. Oh yeah. So what we do is that we have got this challenge called COVID. I mean, we've faced a lot of challenges in the past 9 years, obviously, but a lot of times these challenges were expected. So we kind of knew when we were, we obviously monitor our pipeline very seriously. Being Singaporean, we are, and believe me, our team is very Singaporean, which means that we are very traditional type of business, even though we're very technologically savvy. And in other words, that means, we don't have any venture funding. We have no external investors. We build the business, we reinvest some of the money into the business. We obviously take some of the money off the table, and we build a business step by step, right? So that's the type of team that you'll be sort of working with if you take on our challenge. And then with COVID in January this year becoming a serious problem globally, all the events started being, initially they were postponed, but we quite obviously knew that they were going to be cancelled anyway, these live events. So the challenge that we faced at that time, the first challenge that we personally faced was, what do we do, right? So what I've observed is, in the industry, especially in Singapore, every single event planning or event organizer suddenly overnight became a virtual events expert. And I thought that was really ridiculous. I mean, there's one thing to obviously try and pivot and try and get into a new business line or new business direction, but it's another to sort of classify yourself as an expert when before COVID you've run maybe one event and you probably don't even know how to use the breakout rooms feature in Zoom. So I got kind of frustrated with that when I saw that happening in the industry. So the decision and the challenge that I had to make was, do we sort of follow jump onto the same bandwagon and run virtual events on Zoom and Teams and just build our offerings and products around that and continue to be a virtual events company on what I don't think is a suitable virtual platform for virtual events, i.e. Zoom. Or do we sort of take a step back and revisit the business model and relook at what we're actually doing? So that was, in my opinion, I think that was the real challenge, because we had to make a decision there and then. Do we jump on or do we pull back and revisit and relook? So we chose the latter. So that was sort of what happened early this year in January. We decided that we were not going to create any programs or any team building activities, nothing. We're not going to do any of that on Zoom. So we just went radio silent, really, and we spent a lot of time doing research. We researched on the available virtual event platforms out there, the technologies that can be used for virtual events, and we did a lot of homework. We spent a lot of time doing a lot of homework. And then we found that there were some tools that were suitable, but mostly they were not so suitable. So we then invested quite a bit of our profits from last year into building some tools of our own. We did some in partnership, we did some by ourselves, proprietary. So we spent a lot of time researching the industry, talking to other event planners from around the world. We built our network. I built out my network. So now, in the last 7 months, I probably met more than 4,000 event professionals globally. I mean, I didn't even know there were so many event professionals from all around the world. And one thing I've learned is it's actually so much easier to communicate and to collaborate with people virtually than people locally in Singapore. So, I mean, if you're a Singaporean, you probably know what I'm talking about. Everybody in Singapore tends to see you as a competitor as opposed to a collaborator. Well, not everybody, but many people whom I've met. So, but the online world, and that's one positive thing that has changed a lot, has changed my life, I think. Being forced to go virtual, now you are forced to sort of go online and meet new people, and now I'm working 3 time zones. You know, right now in the morning I'm working the Asian time zone. Later on in the evening I'm always on calls with friends or potential partners or potential clients in Europe, from Switzerland, Spain, Portugal, the UK, obviously. And then in the evenings, I'm talking to friends, again, partners, potential clients in the US and in Canada as well. So I'm working 3 time zones now. I'm actually working a lot more than when I used to. But that's sort of how we've changed. The interesting thing about this challenge was, I think initially, Prof. Gordon and Prof. Vas thought that we were just going to sort of submit a virtual events company challenge and saying, look, we're going to just do exactly as we've done last year, but everything is just going to be virtual. Truth be told, that was the original idea. That was the original idea. We wanted to really do that as well, because it was sort of more straightforward. But if there's one thing that I've learned from this entire experience, is that we need to design our business to be a lot more agile, to be a lot more pandemic agnostic, industry agnostic, black swan situation agnostic. I know these are very big words, but simply put, like, how do we design a business that will not be easily affected by whatever is happening outside, or that will allow us to pivot even quicker than we have done in this time? How do we design a business around that? So that sort of is the gist of our challenge document for this semester, and it is the business that we are building. We're not just simply building a virtual events company. We are building an ecosystem for virtual event professionals. And what that is in our research for the last 7 years, we've met hundreds of virtual event solutions. We've met hundreds of professional event planners. We've met hundreds of potential clients from all over the world. And we realized that because the virtual event scene is so new, it's a wild west. It's a huge opportunity. Everything is all over the place. There's so many new requirements, so many new technologies popping up every single day that if you sort of take your finger off the pulse, you're just going to miss it, right? Something huge is going to come up and you're just going to miss it. So our focus, when we re-looked at what we've built over the last 9 years, we've built a reputation, we've built a portfolio, we've built credentials that we know what we're talking about when we plan and organize events. We have a huge client base. We have an even larger prospect database. And now in the last 7 months, we have built a very large contact network of event professionals and network of event technology providers. So we thought, why don't we build an ecosystem for the events industry, whether it's virtual right now and then hybrid later on. But why don't we start building this ecosystem where we start to serve people who are in this ecosystem. We start to serve the solution providers, we serve the end clients, we serve the integrators who are the event planners, and we bring more clarity to the entire ecosystem. So that's our goal, that's our mission. We want to be serving these people. And then how do we do that? We do that through 2 things. One, we do it through education. So we record webinars, we do videos on YouTube, we share it on LinkedIn and on our blog as well, obviously. We talk about use cases. So a lot of times we realize that when solutions or tech services or SaaS products market themselves, they always focus on the features, how amazing that feature is, how many people can log onto the platform. We can have 300, 500 people on a Zoom webinar, but do you really need 500? Well, okay, 500 people on a Zoom webinar, fine. But 500 people in a Zoom call, I mean, that makes absolutely no sense, to me at least. You know, the feature is there, but the use case isn't. So what we do in our marketing, in our education, is in our training, is we build use cases constantly every day. How do you use X to organize a virtual family day that is interactive? How do you combine that with an offline party box to make it more interesting, to make it more tangible? And then who is actually providing this offline party box solution? You know, how do you stack different technologies together to make your event a lot more exciting, a lot more realistic? And then what we then do is we then share these use cases with the solution providers and say, look, guys, I mean, you stop marketing your features, start marketing your use cases, but this is a video that we've created for you. Take it and market it. You know, I appreciate that there are other technologies that we have stacked in this entire use case video, but such is life. You do need to combine a few different things to make it a lot more interactive, to make it a lot more engaging. So
what you're really,
yeah.
let's stop a sec, just so it's clear. What you're trying to do is create the Airbnb of the events management industry. The buyers and the sellers. The whole success depends on will you get there first, because the platform depends on you, on the network effect. Who are you?
Yes.
Do you see any competitors out there? What makes you think you're going to be the first one to get there?
Well, so there are a lot of platform / ecosystem, obviously, but I haven't found one that has well, firstly, our like you rightfully pointed out, Gordon, earlier, we have done a pivot, but it's not 180 degrees pivot, because we're still in the events industry, and the events industry is huge. Do we have competitors? Yeah, I'm sure there are fragments of competition out there. But again, you know, for example, when Airbnb first started, do they have competitors? Yeah, they had Craigslist as a competitor, right? But is it really, you know? So same for us. Are there platforms? Yes, there are event blogs, there are event websites that probably event professionals can go to. But the event blogs and event sites are so technical and so focused towards the event professionals that the end user, for example, if X Culture wanted to organize a virtual symposium, you probably would not you probably would not try and get ideas from an event blog, right? You would still go to an event planner. But what we would create ourselves is, you would come to us and we would have case studies and use cases and stories and to share with you, to say, look, this university has done a symposium, this is how they've done it, and they've used these different platforms. So you would, as an end client, you would come to get out for such knowledge, for such information. You would not book you would not book our services to plan the event for you, because we would then work with with the other system integrators, with the other event integrators, and offer their services to you instead, right? So it's sort of like, again, Airbnb, yeah. I would beg to differ that getting there first is important. A lot in our challenge document and in our new business model depends on the success of our marketing. Getting there first probably is important, but letting a lot of people, the network effect of letting a lot of people know, number one, what we're doing, that we exist, number two, that we exist, number three, believe that what we're doing is right, resonate with what we're doing, support us. I think those are the challenges. I think getting there first, you know, probably worked in the past, but now we're in such a virtual age, right?
And collecting all those, like as you point out, most events providers are almost like mom and pops. There are a few people.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily have the expertise. They have maybe charisma to hold an event, but they may not have the expertise, and they sort of learn on the job. What you're doing is basically accelerating their capability by giving them some expertise. They have an event. You're providing that knowledge capital on how to host it virtually, and you have some providers of virtual services. So it is a platform, but you need to get enough of those buyers on board and enough of the sellers, because the buyers say, oh, you got sellers, and the sellers say you got buyers, and it's happy family.
Yeah. So like I said in my challenge document, everyone who tries to start a platform or an ecosystem business always says they face a chicken and egg issue. I don't think it's a chicken and egg issue. It's a chicken issue. Like how do you get the how do you find the chicken first? So you sort of have to decide. Do you want to first get on board the buyers, or do you want to onboard the sellers first? Right? My opinion is you got to onboard the buyers first. When you onboard the buyers, and the buyers in our case are twofold. First, they could be end clients who are buying the event organizer services. Yes, we have another buyer who is the event organizer himself, right? Because he's the one who's buying the solution. So onboarding the end client is obviously more difficult than onboarding an event organizer. If you give the event organizer enough value, for example, if we tell an event organizer that all you need to do is just subscribe, for example, right, to our newsletter. That's it. Our newsletter gives you every week use cases. We'll send you, we'll create virtual event proposals for you. We'll create it for you. We'll create the entire budget for you. We'll send it to you for free just because you are on our list, right? We'll give you all this information on how to pivot to the virtual events world profitably and properly. And the best thing is you don't even have to do anything. All you need to do is replace our holding logo with your own and send it to your client list. That's it. Is that not enough value? I mean, that saves you 3 days, 4 days, 10 days maybe of work, right? Plus, we create the ideas, we create the use cases. So a lot of event blogs say, check out the top 10 ways of doing virtual team building on Zoom. What we would say is, here are the 10 proposals that you can send to your clients for virtual team building offerings, right? And this is the cost. These are the people that you should talk to. This is the cost that you can sort of charge, because we know how much the market is actually charging simply because of the number of people that I'm talking to. Here it is. Take it, put your logo in, and send it out. And if you want, then just contact this list of people who's providing those services. If you don't, then just replace them with somebody that you like. That's it. So with this, they will stay with us, right? And as they stay with us, then we say, oh, by the way, we have a really great product called Remo, for example, right? And we're sending that in, and then people start, and then we do a deal with Remo, for instance, and we say, look, do us a deal. If you're charging, I don't know, $5,000 per event, anybody who's coming through the GetOut platform, do it at $1,000, right? But remove some features, make it smaller, something like that. But give us a customized package, customized deal. What do you think they'll say? I mean, like, we've got a database of 4,000 event professionals and a further 6,000 end user clients. And, we're just saying, just give us a small cut if anybody buys. If no one buys, and plus on top of that, we will create, we will customize a new case study for you based on a use case, not based on features and only conferences. So the thing is, a lot of these event solutions, virtual event solutions out there, are focused on one type of event, virtual conferences. I mean, there are so many different types of events out there. Just corporate events itself covers a whole spectrum. There's AGMs, there are town halls, there are obviously meetings, private meetings, there's team building, family day, dinner and dance, gala dinners, prize presentations, so many different things, right? But a lot of these platforms, these solutions are fixated on the conference track, because the conference track is the biggest single track of events, whether it's live events or virtual events, right? But when we go in and we say, look, did you know that there are actually 8-10 different use cases other than for a virtual conference? Have you thought about actually putting in these features? What we then do is we work with the founders and we start to contribute to their roadmap, to their features list. So for example, if they had a features list of, 100 features requests, and they didn't know which one to go first, we would come in and we'd say, look, I think features 7, 25, and 32 are probably ones that you will want to prioritize if you want to look at the other 9 different tracks of virtual events, because these are 9 that you probably haven't heard of, but they're huge. I mean, the conference track could be, a $1 billion market, but the other tracks combined could be $3 billion. So you're giving up. It's like, looking at the United States as the only market in the whole world, and then ignoring the rest of the world, right? Ignoring Europe, ignoring parts of Asia, and all. When you combine everything, the US is nothing. It's only really big because it's one market. But if you could sort of look at the rest of the fragments as one market ex-US, that's huge. I mean, and that's not a market that you would want to ignore.
So what are you asking the students to do? Are basically, where are the potential buyers in each of the, so the event managers within a specific country, and then how to market and access them? Or what specifically are you looking for the students to do?
I think your design thinking course would be very useful for students who are taking on this challenge. So the bulk of our challenge focuses on the aspect of marketing. But when you read the challenge document, and I've taken some extra effort to sort of draw some doodles and sketches to try and make it a lot simpler to understand. One key thing that I've raised in the challenge document is the company that can pay the most to acquire a client/user will win the game. Yes. So how do you pay the most? And what do I mean by that? So for example, if we were to run Facebook ads to promote our platform, whether it is to a buyer or a seller, how do we? And there's obviously going to be other competitors. I mean, the end solution, the solution providers themselves could potentially be a competitor because the client could go direct, right? And circumvent us. How do we outmarket these competitors by spending more money? So obviously, we don't have, I said earlier, we do not have any external funding, and we don't intend to bring any of that in. So how do we self-fund a marketing campaign in perpetuity whilst paying lots of money, right? So that's in the challenge document. The answer to this question that I've just posed is in the challenge document. That's how we're gonna do it, right? So you really got to read the document to understand it. But that's something different because we found a way. We didn't invent this way. We just did a lot of studying and a lot of research to constantly fund our marketing campaigns in perpetuity and outspend every single competitor that comes online. So that's one. But the main the deliverables would be, for example, how do you create a hook, a story, and an offer that is interesting enough to capture someone's attention? How do you write a story and create a 5,000 word landing page to convince people to check out your offer? And then how do you create an offer that either funds the marketing or makes us money? You see, so it's a very marketing centric challenge. I think if you enjoy new age marketing, the new ways of doing marketing, if you enjoy things like creating ads, creating funnels, creating hook story offers, these are things that if you enjoy doing this, then for sure this is a challenge that you would love working on. It is more that than actually finding clients, because again, our client is global. Our client base is now very, very clearly global. We have one market. It's the world. It's called the internet. That we just have no choice, right? So we don't necessarily need to differentiate between different cities, different countries, like what we did last year. However, having said that, we've also spent, I think, in the last 3 months, 2 months, maybe, I think I spent about 10, 15K on Facebook ads to test different markets to see how they are receptive towards what we're offering, and we found some countries that's interesting. Singapore, of course, is interesting. Hong Kong, for sure, is something that's interesting. Who would be interested in what we are doing. So I'm talking about both the end clients as well as the event organizers, as well as the solution providers, right? So Singapore, Hong Kong, and Asia, those are the two key ones. Malaysia, not so. And then if you move slightly out of Asia into Europe, we found the UK to be a huge opportunity, huge market, very receptive. People are submitting the forms, they're coming in, that we're doing demos, we're talking to them. The UK is big. Germany as well. Unfortunately, nobody in our team speaks German. So the language barrier that we face to target ex-UK Europe is quite challenging for us. And the frustration there is that Europe seems to be quite an interesting market for what we are doing vis-a-vis the United States. So name countries in Europe, most of it we've tested, and we've got reasonably positive results. But the language barrier is a tough one. So we're talking about Germany, France, Spain, UK, of course, Belgium. So it's already 6 countries, easy, and just any European countries, I think, would be interested in what we're doing.
Are you looking at hiring at some point, bringing people in some of those markets that could serve as the intermediary or be part of?
We are. Now, I mean, that has really escalated our plans. So before last semester, if we had to, we still had to wait before we took the take the step to move into a country and then hire somebody and all that. But now it's like, if we have a lot of interest coming in from, let's say, Germany, then we sort of need a really charismatic German speaker on our team, even if it's an intern next week, because we're getting.
We're operating virtually. So,
Yeah.
XCulture has the people that support XCulture are located all around the world. The students may not realize that, but
Yeah, which is why exactly, which is why I'm so excited to be on this platform again, because I thought if there's any platform that I know or I'm experienced with, it's the XCulture platform, because it's so global. We can get so many talents through the network. Once we start to get some inkling of, hang on, we've got some teams working on Europe and some other teams working on Belgium, Germany and then Belgium and UK, then we start to realize, hang on, and culture is really important. I think now even more so, super important, because we've suddenly in a few months we've become a global company, and again, I'm working 3 time zones, but sometimes it's very hard it's very hard for other people to appreciate my culture and the way I talk and the way I do things, because I'm very direct. I say it as it is, and we've known each other for a few years now. But sometimes I think some cultures, the Portuguese culture, they say, yeah, I think it's okay. And to me, it's, what do you mean it's okay? I don't get it. Like, do you want it or do you not want it? What do you mean it's okay? So it's very hard for me to appreciate and understand, like, do you want to come on board or no? But the US, so Canada, great. South Africa, huge market for this as well. I'm quite sure that there are some African countries, like maybe Nigeria, I think maybe could be interesting, but very, very challenging by way of culture. So for example, Zoom is huge in Nigeria. So if you run a campaign saying, do not run a virtual events on Zoom, I've got people coming in to say, who the hell are you? What do you know about? I mean, are you saying you're bigger than Zoom? Zoom is in our schools, it's in our work, it's in everywhere in Nigeria. I mean, who do you think you're? I'm like, dude, I'm just saying, don't run an event on Zoom, man. I mean, if you want to use it for a conference or for teaching, by all means, do it. But that's Nigeria, right? But in South Africa, you get people saying, yes, Zoom sucks. Don't do it for events. Great, do it. And these are all African nations, but culture is so different. But it's instant. We need to be in there. The United States is very strange. It's strange. The results that I've got from the US is strange. It is strange because initially I thought we're going to get huge amount of interest from the US. We are not. And after speaking to a lot more people, then I realized why. I found a difference in culture also for event planners, our intermediaries, our integrators. Event professionals, event planners in the US are more keen to piece their event technology together by themselves. Apparently, they would say, I want this streaming tool, I want that platform, I want this presentation tool, I want that whiteboard. I'm not so interested in a holistic solution, in a holistic platform. Whereas in Europe, every single country, for them, they're saying, do you have everything on one platform? If you do, great. Like, can I speak to an event planner and the solutions provider on your platform? You can? Okay, good. I'll use it. I'll stay subscribed. I'll do it. But for the Americans, they stay subscribed because they see different pieces of information coming in. There's there's a platform, there's a streaming tool, there's a ticketing software, there's something else coming in, and they're like, okay, so then they go direct and they talk directly to them, which is absolutely fine for us anyway. So those are not clients that we want in the first place. Canada, very similar to to the Europeans, they would say, look, this is great. This looks like you've got everything. If we can sort of make the economics work, let's do some business. I was speaking to TELUS, who saw what we've been doing, and then they came in with a really different angle. They say, look, we're looking for companies to invest in who's doing all this, and TELUS has a venture capital arm. Can we do that? And so the answer is we'll talk, let's talk, but in my head it's no. But they've got a huge distribution network. Obviously, I mean, TELUS is huge, a huge corporate distribution network, right? For TELUS to say, guys, you guys should really check out Get Out in Singapore. They've seen to have built a good ecosystem, a good portfolio of solutions and all that. That's it. We're in Canada. Like that, just because if TELUS says so. So these are
about Singapore. How do you get that? So Singapore is very good at getting things done. It has a reputation for quality. In Malaysia, around the surrounding areas of surrounding Singapore. That's not necessarily known elsewhere around the world. How do you take that brand Singapore and leverage that for your business? And
I think that, So if you want to see how efficient the Singapore government is, I think this COVID situation is the best proof of capabilities. We didn't do everything right, or the government didn't do everything right. I think there were a few pivots that the Singapore government did as well. In the course of the last 7 months managing this pandemic in our country. But it also showed to the world and to the people that, we were fluid enough, or the government has designed the government themselves to be fluid enough and agile enough to be able to answer to different situations as the situation changes. For example, initially when the World Health Organization said, only if you are sick do you need to put on a mask. So that's what the Singapore government said to the people. Then 2 weeks later, WHO said, everybody needs to put on a mask. The Singapore government then said, now everyone needs to put on a mask. And then the people were saying, oh, no, you shouldn't. Why are you flip-flopping? Why are you changing your rules and your regulations and all that? But there are a lot of lessons to learn from the Singapore government, right? How they did it. So firstly, how quickly they could implement these things, how quickly they implemented checks. Right now, on an average, 14-day trailing average, so that's a number that I'm personally tracking, we have less than 2 positive cases every day, right? But every single case that's been announced, it's fully contact traced, right? So that's efficiency, I believe, and that's something that it's not just rampant in the government. It is something in all Singaporeans, and I'm very, very Singaporean, believe me. What is it like being sort of like a Singaporean businessman? I think we're very hybrid business people. We're very hybrid entrepreneurs. On one end, we're very westernized, simply because of our British culture and because of the amount of expats that's been living and working and influencing us in Singapore, Western expats, right? But at the same time, we are also very Asian, and that means we are very careful in decision making. We do take our time when we have to before we decide. But when we decide, we are also very loyal. Which also means when we decide that we are going to work with a certain team or a certain partner or a certain solutions provider or a certain event organizer, the amount of the level of loyalty is there because it's just inherent in. So I'm ethnically Chinese, so that's sort of in us, right? So we follow the rules, we follow the international rules. We obviously are aware of what's happening around the world. We are adventurous. We would for sure try things if it sounds reasonable or plausible. But at the same time, we are also very grounded. We don't make crazy decisions. We make aggressive decisions, but we don't make crazy decisions. We like the Singapore government also, we take our criticisms about us very seriously, but we don't take it personally. So there's a difference there, right? We don't just completely ignore critics. I take critics very seriously, but I just don't take it personally. I mean, life goes on, whether you like me or you don't. But these are sort of like the traits of most Singaporean entrepreneurs / startups. We're a very good sort of hybrid of both cultures.
So I could say, if you did it over again, what would you do different? But you are doing it different again.
Yeah, but I mean that's if I could re well, one thing maybe let me rephrase the question. I mean, what did I regret not doing this time last year or January 2019? What I regret not doing is implementing my plans quicker, actually having more guts to implement my plans. This time last year, I was already talking to you over beers at that time, right? That I said, hey, I want to make our company more virtual. Eventually, I'm hoping that the business can be run virtually completely, and then our staff, our team can be remote, and everyone can be all over the world, and we'll still be running this business together. And this was this time last year, and I thought I'll start putting in some plans to do it, right? And then I was sharing with my team a lot of times that we should think of decoupling ourselves from being the actual event organizer and try and be more of an advisor, consultant, I didn't know the right word at that time, right? But I was thinking consultant, advisor, advising the actual event planners and advising the end clients and sort of being the middleman that provides value. And I was wondering how we could actually do that last year. So what happened was, COVID basically forced me to make a decision and say, Felix, whether you're right or wrong, you got to do it, man. Yeah.
So we're a couple more minutes. What would you advise the students now if they're going to work on your challenge? What are you looking for, and how should they, as they write the report, what do they should think about?
Again, I think the first thing that after watching this webinar, I think the students must definitely pull up the challenge document that we've very painstakingly created. Because it was not a copy and paste document other than the personal profile. Everything else was recreated. There are sketches, there are doodles, there are diagrams. It's not the best handwriting, but it's natural, it's real. I try to break it down into the simplest, sexiest way of explaining what we are doing. You would understand, and if anything, you would learn something new too, I'm sure, in the challenge document. A new way of doing marketing, how to make marketing pay for itself whilst paying you. I know it sounds very internet marketing, very dodgy, but it's not. We're a proper business. We've been doing this for 9 years. It works. So that's the first thing that I think all students should do after they've finished watching this webinar. Just pull it up, look at the diagrams, if anything, then you'll understand what we're trying to do. What we expect as a deliverable at the end of the challenge in 3 stages, in line with the program, is primarily you're going to be creating a lot of very practical stuff. So that's why I say, if you like the topic of marketing, if you like writing video scripts, you like to sort of play around with the psychology of marketing in a social media world, how do you create hook stories, offers, how do you make offers pay for themselves, pay for the hook, pay for the ads, which then creates more hook story offers, how do you create these kind of evergreen funnels and all that? At the end of the challenge, you will be creating a lot of these things, right? And I love reviewing these funnels, these hook story offer circles, because they are so practical. And what I'm willing and able to do is to test it. So whenever, as we go along, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3 of the challenge, whenever things are created, we'll run it. We'll test it, we'll put money behind it, and we'll run it, and then we'll give the results back to the students and say, put this in your report. I don't know if there are any clients who's willing to, as you go along, put money on the good work that's created by the students as we go along, so the students actually gets results. So one thing that I realized last year, from last semester, is that anything, no matter what they create in their challenge document, is still theory. None of it is tested. But this challenge that we've created, because it's so marketing centric, whilst even though it's focused on the events industry, so marketing centric, that we can test as we go, right? So I'm not going to throw like thousands of dollars on every student group, especially if we get the large number.
100 students coming at you with.
That's the problem, right? It's a good problem. So if we're going to get like last year hundreds of reports coming in, then it's going to be difficult for us to be putting significant money. But my promise is if there's any promising funnels or hook story offers that's being created by the students, I would love to test it. And if the students say, can we test it in, I don't know, Angola or in Mexico or some, we'll test it, we'll put some money towards it. It's not thousands of dollars, but we'll test something, right? We'll work something out. We'll test it just to get real results. On if their theory is correct. And if their theory is incorrect, with the results, they'll still have time to pivot their report recommendations, because maybe they would have, if they complete it quickly, complete it early, we could test it before stage 2 kicks in, right? Or phase 2 kicks in. Then
it's not the normal process, but I'll let Vas manage that. We may end up with, your email address to them.
Again, happy to look. It benefits us as well, because I would love to know if that works, right? I mean, creating hooks. A hook is nothing more than a headline, like a 20-word headline, maybe under 20 words, right? It sounds really easy, but how do you create a hook that makes people, as you're scrolling on Facebook, how do you create a hook that makes people stop? That's tough. And I've seen thousands, if not tens of thousands of hooks in the last few years of being so active on social media, as you know, Gordon. So I would know an instance if this hook is worth betting on. And if I have a gut feel that a hook that's come in is, look, this looks really interesting, let's test it, let's do it. I'll just do it. I wouldn't even ask for permission. I'll just do it and send the results. The students get to benefit from this as well, if they work on this challenge. So it's not just theory. I mean, I hate theory only as much as you do, Gordon. So even for the X-Culture challenge, I think the theory is important. Putting to paper what they've learned in class is important. But I thought, hey, if we could boost their learning experience by giving them actual real-life tests in small quantities, right? That would be exciting. That would be fun. That would be relevant. That would be real. So that would be the experience they get if they choose to work with our challenge this semester.
Okay. Well, I think any other comments? Otherwise, I'm gonna. The students. I think some of them are my students here, and then I think a lot of them are overseas and in bed, so they'll be looking at the recording.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, if they have any questions, you know how to reach me through the admin, the X-Culture admin. So for sure,
students should a lot of the questions tend to be repetitive, and so students should send them to the X-Culture email address, because they will filter out all those replicated questions, and the ones we can answer, you get.
For sure, I'll be here.
Okay, well, Felix, thanks again for being on this a second time. And it's amazing. Felix is an idea generator, so it's amazing to see how quickly you evolved the business. I know you've had multiple iterations, permutations, just from interacting with you over the years and the different ideas you come up with. So it's great. I think the students will learn quite a bit along the way. Great.
We got to get that beer soon.
Do you have any comments?
Hello, Vas.
Sorry, it's a very late hour here. So,
I know it's late. Did I just get you back out of bed?
Yeah. So, but yes, yeah. Great session, everyone, and yeah, thank you so much. So this is the end, right? I didn't.
Yeah, no, we just finished.
All right, so
okay.
Well, then I'll post.
You were in bed.
I'll probably post the recording tomorrow. So, but yeah, thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
You.
Thanks,
Felix.
guys.
Thank you.
See ya.